So I want to do a brief discussion on the classes of D&D between 3.5 and 5th edition. This is just an overview because the mechanics of classes are actually very different between these two editions, and so we want to look at what classes are before we go into any individual classes. And there are two main differences. Well, I'll say three. Because the proficiency bonus, as I pointed out in previous videos, makes everybody equal in 5th edition. Everybody gets the same modifier for everything based on level. While in 3rd edition, everything is different. Each class has different sets of modifiers for everything. And this by itself makes converting classes from one to the other somewhat problematic. But there are two other really big things that distinguish these two editions in their classes. The biggest thing that is unique to classes in 5th edition as opposed to 3rd, and that is subclasses. You'll note in 5th edition, for instance, we go through here, the Barbarian has his paths. You have the Berserker and the Totem Barbarian. The Bard has his colleges. Cleric gets his domains. He can choose one domain, and that gives him all the certain abilities based on that domain. This is his subclass. Wizards are the ones that are most complicated. They have 8 separate subclasses, each one based on a different school of magic. And sometime between 1st and 3rd level, everybody will choose a subclass. So I think fighters and rogues, they get their subclass at 3rd level. Clerics, warlocks, sorcerers, these guys all have to choose it at 1st level because their entire class is actually based on the subclass. Everything. The concept of these classes is based on what their choice of subclass is. So they get it at 1st level. I believe the wizard gets it at 2nd level. Druid, I think, gets it at 2nd level. So sometime, either 1st, 2nd, or 3rd level, you will choose a subclass. Now, in 3rd edition, there are no subclasses. If you're a fighter, you're a fighter. That's it. If you're a rogue, you're a rogue. Wizard, you're a wizard. No subclasses. You just get a list of things for being that class. Now, the idea of the subclass, I think, is kind of a derivative of what we have in 3rd edition known as prestige classes. And prestige classes are listed in the Dungeon Master's Guide. They're not a standard player feature, but can be introduced, used by GMs in their games. And this allows players to choose somewhat more powerful class options. And it's also considered to be part of the multi-classing feature in 3rd edition. So a fighter can multi-class into an Eldritch Knight, which is a prestige class in 3rd edition. But in order to get this prestige class, he has to prepare for it. He has to plan for it because there are certain prerequisites that have to be met in order to multi-class into these prestige classes. In 3rd edition, these prestige class kind of concept is translated into the subclasses. Matter of fact, many of these prestige classes of 3rd edition are actually subclasses in 5th edition. Not all of them, but a number of them are. Or a number of their abilities are put in as subclasses in 5th edition. Like the Arcane Trickster in 5th edition. This is a subclass of the Rogue. I think the Rogue's 3 subclasses are the Thief, Arcane Trickster, and Assassin. The Arcane Trickster is a prestige class in 3.5. That is primarily, in order to become an Arcane Trickster, you already have to be able to cast some arcane spells and have certain rogue abilities, and then you can multi-class into an Arcane Trickster, so basically it becomes your 3rd class. And so this is a major difference between the two. Another big difference is the class features. And that's not to say that 3rd edition has class features, and 5th edition has class features, but it's the way that the class features work that is very different, because in 5th edition, every class and subclass has a list of class features that you get at various levels. And this is what the classes are based on, are these class features. They give you abilities, they may give you bonuses to certain things, like fighting styles, give you some bonuses to different ways of fighting. They give you bonus actions, various things. This is what 5th edition is based around for their classes. 3rd edition has class features, but not all classes have them. For instance, I think the Sorcerer in 3rd edition has one class feature at 1st level and never gets another class feature. Because he's based around magic. He doesn't need class feature. So he has the class feature, you can call it his spellcasting, and then I think he has the familiar. But the fighter also doesn't have any actual class features. He gets bonus feats because in 3rd edition, feats are much more common, which I need to do a video on that soon. But he gets just the bonus feats. He doesn't get anything special. He just gets these extra feats. Now, some classes do have class features. A lot of the monk features, the diamond body, the soulless body, all these things exist in 3.5. They were translated over into 5th edition. So some class features are there, but not all of them are. And most of the stuff you'll find in 5th edition doesn't exist in 3rd, except possibly as a feat that you can take. For instance, in 5th edition, the only class that gets meta magic is the sorcerer. This is unique to the sorcerer in 5th edition. All of these meta magic things that the sorcerer gets in 5th edition are meta magic feats in 3rd edition that can be taken by anybody who can cast a spell. And so we see how these class features, because 5th edition is built around class features, most everything in 5th edition was invented for 5th edition. These classes, just the way these are set up, is extremely different. Because of the way it's set up, 3rd edition has far more options. So a fighter, he gets 11 bonus feats, and every character will get a total of 7 feats. Normally, fighter gets a bonus of 11. If he's a human, he gets another one. So a fighter could have up to 19 feats. That's 19 choices that the fighter has to make in developing his character. But they're just given their abilities over here. They make the one choice of their subclass, and everything else is given to them. No choices, many choices. Same thing with skills. In 5th edition, you start off with a certain number of proficiencies and skills. You never get more. Now, occasionally, if a class feature gives you proficiency in a skill or saving throw, same thing. You start off with 2, and maybe you get a 3rd one with a class feature. But you can't increase it. It only increases with your proficiency modifier. You don't get to any new ones. In 3.5, everybody gets skill points at every level to increase their skills. They get to choose feats at certain points. At every one of them, they get 1 feat at 1st level and then 1 every 3rd level. So they have these choices that they're making, regardless of what class they are. Now, some classes get more skill points than others, but they all get these feats, and some get bonus feats. This is based in choice. Now, there are some class features that you just get at certain levels, like with the monk, with the bard, he gets some class features. The barbarian gets some. Rogue, these guys. A lot of classes still have class features, but the development of your character is still based in the choices you make. While in 5th edition, the development of your character has very few choices there. If you're a spellcaster, you get to choose your spells. But other than that, there's very few choices to make because it is based in class features. So these 2 things, besides the proficiency bonus, which I mentioned in the beginning, these 2 things, subclasses and then class features. These 2 things make classes between the 2 editions vastly different. You still have a fighter in both. You still have a rogue in both. You still have the bard. The only class that is... Well, there's one class in 5th edition that's not in 3rd, and that's the Warlock. But I will say the Warlock was introduced later, I believe, in the Complete Arcane. The Warlock exists. It is just not standard to the player's handbook. But all the classes still exist, and they have the same name. But the way they work is going to be extremely different because the mechanics have been altered so vastly. And just wanted to make this quick overview. I will be doing a series going over some basics of similarities and differences between each class. Although, because these differences exist, I can't actually do a point-by-point comparison because the points simply will not line up regardless of what class you do. No class between these 2 editions will line up perfectly, and so a point-by-point comparison is not truly possible. But I will be doing a brief description of each class and giving you a kind of comparison of what's similar and what's changed. And a lot of what will have changed is the subclasses in 5th edition have changed a lot of things, and the feat system has changed a lot. The feat system of 3rd edition makes it very different than 5th. But I'll leave that here, and we'll get into the rest of it later.